Hi, everybody. It's me in the library. Today is Friday, the last day of our virtual library. Next week, I get to see you guys in person. I'm very happy about that. All right, let's continue with Phoebe the Spy. I hope you're watching my videos. I'm posting some videos about presidents and George Washington and who knows what else in the future. I don't know. Just stay with me and you'll find out. All right, Phoebe is about to, actually she's already arrived at Mortier House, right? Uh-oh, hold on, I lost my page here. Okay, Phoebe soon settled into her job. The work wasn't as hard as she thought it would be. Mrs. Washington had brought her own quilts and feather beds. It was Phoebe's job to air and turn these every morning, as well as to see to the buying of food and the serving of meals. She had to keep the silver cleaned and shining and the furniture dusted and polished. She did not have any special jobs to do for General Washington, except to see that his meals were served on time. He was very particular about having dinner served promptly at 4 o'clock, and Phoebe sometimes had a hard time getting everything finished by then. General Washington never said very much. He was tall with a quiet voice. He looked like the kind of man who could win a war. Mrs. Washington was to have a fresh egg each day, and Pompey, who was a lot of company to Phoebe even though he was only 8 years old, helped by visiting the hen house every morning. When dinner was over, he and Phoebe often stood on the kitchen steps and fed the hens leftover scraps of bread from the table. So here she is with Pompey, and they are fixing Mrs. Washington's fancy bed, right? Okay. Phoebe was a good housekeeper, but she did not forget why she was there. Day after day, she watched and waited and listened. General Washington came and went. The house was full of people all the time. Officers of the army, friends, members of the bodyguard. Phoebe slipped among them, silent as a shadow, as her father had taught her. Whenever she saw someone talking softly, she stopped to poke the fire, fill their glasses, light new candles. But still she saw nothing and heard nothing. Here she is being a good spy, right? She's lighting a candle while there are two guys standing there talking. They might be saying something important. Each day at noon, she took a basket and went down to the waterfront to do the day's marketing. When she was finished, she would make her way back to the edge of the harbor and stand looking out over the ocean. No one took any notice of her in her clean white apron and cap, a shawl thrown across her shoulders. Nor did anyone particularly notice the man who always came to stand beside her, his curly hair powdered and pulled back, his brown face plump and smiling. The two of them would stand together for a few moments, seeming to talk of nothing important. Sometimes Phoebe would throw out a few crumbs to the gulls, which would gather noisily at their feet. After a time, they would move off in different directions. Phoebe back to Mortier House, and Sam Francis back to the Queen's Head. So who was she meeting every day at the harbor? Her dad, right? Phoebe never had anything to report. She was particularly careful to watch every member of the general's bodyguard who came to the house. None was called by a name starting with T, and they all seemed to be truly fond of the general and laughed and joked with him. Okay, here's Phoebe at the harbor with her father. She meets him there every day and tells him things maybe that she has seen, if she has seen anything. 2 members of the bodyguard did stand out from the others. One was especially nice. Mr. Hickey was his name. He smiled at Phoebe while she was serving and often came into the kitchen to joke with her and Mary while Mary was preparing the meals. Phoebe was the youngest servant in the house except for Pompey. When the others were talking, she often felt left out. She was glad to have someone to talk to. Hickey seemed much younger than the other men, not much older, in fact, than Phoebe herself, and he seemed glad to talk to her, too. Like Phoebe, he seemed not to have many friends. Phoebe often saw him sitting by himself at the edge of the woods. Here he is, Mr. Hickey. Mr. Green was another member of General Washington's bodyguard who kept to himself, but he was not like Hickey. He never spoke to Phoebe at all, even when he saw her in the yard. Phoebe would always say, "Evening, sir," but he never so much as looked at her. From what she could tell, he didn't say much to anyone, even at dinner time when everyone did a lot of talking. Though his name didn't begin with T, Phoebe made up her mind to watch him very carefully. There was something about him she didn't like. You can see his face right there. One more page, I think. One day, when Hickey came to the kitchen, he had a small cloth bag with him. He handed it to Phoebe. "Here," he said, "it's some seed for your precious chickens." Phoebe was surprised. She didn't know anyone had noticed that she fed them. She opened the bag. "But it's good seed, sir," she protested. "It's too good to feed the chickens." Hickey laughed. "Oh, it's only the king's true men who'll be missing it," he said. "Let's see if your chickens will get fatter from British grain than from American breadcrumbs." Phoebe smiled. She didn't ask him how he'd got the seed, but he began to bring it home to her often. Sometimes he would bring it himself. Other times she would find a bag lying on the table when she came into the kitchen. Sometimes there would be a bright ribbon tied around it. Then Hickey would say, "The ribbon's for you, pretty Phoebe. Compliments of King George III." Sometimes there would be a stick of candy inside. Always, he said, stolen from those loyal to the King of England. Now remember, the King of England and his army was the enemy of George Washington and us, right? Soon she was looking forward to his visits every day, and as the days went by, Phoebe could still find no one who seemed to be plotting to take General Washington's life. She thought about asking Mr. Hickey for help. Her father had told her to trust no one. Still, perhaps she could trust him. She would wait and see. Okay. Here he is bringing her gifts. And these things he's bringing her are things that he has stolen from the king, right? Okay, boys and girls, we'll stop there. This is Friday, and I will see you all on Monday. Bye.